Recording right now. Here we go. Clean breakthrough brought to you by Greenville Transitions. We have a hot off the press topic today. What did we decide it was? Conflict.
How to fight.
Love and war and addiction and recovery.
There you go.
Love and war.
We're going to talk more about war.
All fair and love and war and addiction and recovery.
Yeah. We're talking more about war today, though.
Okay.
And recovery.
All right. How are we going to get into this?
Perhaps we could talk about just some basic conflict styles. What do you guys think? Sure.
Sure, Cole. Talk about basic conflict styles.
All right, I'll do it. Okay, so we do a variation of these, not necessarily one of these, but we tend to have maybe like when we gravitate towards number one, hostile dependent. Lucas, give me a guess on what you think hostile dependent means. Go ahead.
I feel like I would say synonyms for the two words in the name.
Well, give me a guess, Lucas. What do you think hostile dependent means?
Like you're being mean?
Yeah, we're talking about real snarky, snappy, pretty explosive arguments, get loud. People who just tend to very much elevate conflict. That's a hostile dependent conflict style.
So they're not dependent, but they depend on conflicts being hostile.
Yes. When they depend on hostility as a way to get control back in a conflict. Yes. Yep.
God, so relatable.
Yeah. Okay. Number two, conflict avoidant. David, any guesses on what conflict avoidant means?
I am conflict avoidant. I like to avoid conflict at all costs. I like to turn my back on it and walk the other way.
Yeah, so conflict avoidance is tend to be a pretty noticeable undercurrent of anxiety. And for these people, these are the ones you can tell there's something they want to say, or there's a nervousness, but it's just not coming out. There's just a vibe, and we're not really talking about the issue at hand, but there's a vibe that they need to talk about something, or there's something bothering them. And then there's friendly conflict avoidance. I'll do this one. Friendly conflict avoidance, similar to conflict avoidance, but you don't notice the undercurrent. You don't notice the undercurrent. They're really good at pushing that down and being really socially appropriate in whatever the situation is.
These are around the bush, though. Are they kind of throwing hints out of
they're good at distracting. They're good at distracting. So they're good at making about the other people or talking about the situation at hand. These are the people that are maybe seeing kind of the life of a party, or they got everything figured out. And then all of a sudden you find out something catastrophic happened in their life. And you're like, wait, I didn't even know they were going through that. Had no idea, How about, we just talked about him the other day, Norm Macdonald, who passed away of cancer. Nobody in his life had any idea that he had cancer, and he just kept things rolling, never talked about it. He would be a good example of a friendly conflict avoider from afar. Obviously, I don't know Norm Macdonald, but yeah, the people just kind of comes out of left field. So conflict avoidance, there's an undercurrent of anxiety that's noticeable. Friendly conflict avoiding, you don't really notice the undercurrent, and it's kind of hits you out of left field. So those are three conflict styles. And then obviously there's the fourth, which is what we all strive for, which is assertive, secure conflict, which you're able to oh, that's you? Yeah, that's where you're able to listen to the other person.
The only way I do conflict.
Yeah. Oh, the only way? Yeah. So I think for the first three that are more unhealthy, you're probably looking at a theme of control and fear and how do I grab that back? Whereas when we're talking about secure conflict, you're looking at more of a theme of connection and empathy. I'm able to connect within myself of where you're coming from and be humble enough to hear your points, and vice versa. So that's a little overview of conflict styles. Where do we want to go from there? Did anybody want to give an example of a time in their life they had one of those four going on?
Shoo-wee.
Yeah.
Gosh, the hostile dependent I can so relate to. Obviously the most in adolescence, early adulthood, addiction. Like that was definitely kind of what, well, I mean, I think I was an equal opportunity abuser of all those styles, except for the healthy dependent one, dependent on the person, but probably hostile dependent with the people closest to me in my life that I felt safe enough that like I could be that hostile without them leaving. So probably like, you know, parents, siblings, girlfriend, close friends, that would be the way to fight. But then like job, co-workers, boss, more acquaintances, stuff like that would definitely be more of the conflict avoidant. And then I don't know. Yeah, friendly avoidant would just be like someone I met at the supermarket. They'd be like, I didn't know that guy was addicted to heroin. He never told me that. So I don't know if it's like appropriate for people to have known. I feel like most people in my life knew what was going on. Yeah. But there might have been someone out there that felt like that guy's friendly avoidant. I didn't know he was addicted to crack. And then yeah, the secure style. I mean, that was so foreign to me. I didn't even know how to. I wouldn't even begin to know what that looked like. And I remember getting into recovery and people starting to explain like, oh, you know, you just go to the person directly and you tell them how it made you feel. And I remember being in treatment and people talking about I statements and stuff like that. And it just felt so hokey and goofy. And I also legitimately remember having the thought of like, if I'm talking about me, how do I get to talk about them and everything they're doing wrong? Like that was my legitimate thought of like, this shit doesn't work.
Yeah.
You want me to talk about me and we need to talk about them. They're the bad person who messed up. So like I was that far removed from it that there was just like no reaching me. So it was like, you know, time into recovery and it being modeled for me was another big one. Whether it was modeled to me, like I was in a conflict with somebody and they handled it that way, or seeing it modeled between other people that helped me a lot, but it's like a whole nother language. But I do think it's almost instantly rewarding that, you know, you do it a little bit and you're like, oh my God, that went so much better. And like the conflict's basically over. So I feel like it's like rapidly rewarding where you can kind of get people to buy into it if they can just do it a little bit, is my experience kind of on the other side of it trying to model it for our guys and kind of show them and mediate conflicts that way. One of them, we had one this past week and he called me back later that day and was like, you know, it worked. That's the best I've ever had a conflict go in my life. And that was, we sat down for an hour and talked about it. It's like how he could go and structure these apologies to other guys in the house and kind of clean up like his side of it without blaming them for theirs or anything. Yeah. And it instantly went really well and way better than anything else. Again, so much so that he called me to be like, thank you so much.
Yeah, why don't we share a little bit? Thanks, Lucas. Big share there.
Big share. Sorry.
Big share. A lot of ideas.
We got to set a timer.
Yep. I have two thoughts. So one, like maybe we could share some ways that we try to help our parents and our guys in our sober living get through conflict, and what are maybe some key ingredients we suggest. Secondly, I'd like to talk also about like the way conflict was modeled for us as people when we were kids, and then how we carry that into our business meetings. How do we carry it into our conflicts? Because we've been in business together, the three of us, for over 5 years. And then Lucas and David, both of you have been in business for, how many years now? 9 years? 8. Yeah. So that's a long time. And we certainly have had conflict, and we certainly modeled each of those to each other on some level. So why don't we first go into like, so what are some things we try to teach and model for our guys and our parents when they're trying to go through conflict? So
somebody but me. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, David, how about you? You got any thoughts
on how we model conflict?
Yeah, or how we talk somebody through it. You know, how to have a healthier conflict with someone.
I thought you were saying how conflict was modeled for us.
That's the next thing we'll get into. Okay. We're gonna yeah, that'll be the thing we get into after this.
Stupid me. I'll shut up.
Oh my gosh. I'll have to get like graphics here. Lucas,
like
that's the next point here.
This is a tough thing to talk through without like an example.
I'll go next. How about that?
There we go.
All right. So listen, well, to me, the biggest ingredient when going through conflict is getting it back to what is it about them that's so upsetting, and does it relate to something about yourself? like getting through that very complex thing. You are upset with this person for X, Y, or Z. And it usually can go down to some kind of thematic reason. Like they took control from me. I wasn't seen. I wasn't respected. Right. And then going even deeper than that, are there times in your life where you have control? You have not respected. You have not seen people. And is that why you're having like such a big reaction to that? And like, first and foremost ingredient to getting into that conversation is rapport. You got to have rapport. You got to have connection with the person that you're talking to. So when people sometimes get down on small talk, you know, they're like, I don't know why I have to small talk. I don't know why we have to do this. I'm like, the small talk is the freaking foundation of which we're going to build everything else on. Like, if you don't know, like, if I don't know what your favorite movie is or your favorite superheroes, or you don't have an idea of like what my favorite sports teams are, you don't know who I am, and you're not going to listen to a word I say when we're in a really heated conversation. So first ingredient for me is like building rapport, building that trust in very innocuous ways. That makes sense? Kind of like, how do we try to help people through conflict? So David, I've seen you get through conflicts with guys. What are some of the things you try to do when you're like talking somebody through kind of a tense situation?
Like something that I'm involved in, or just like guys in the house, or
guys in the house?
Gosh, it's kind of like going through some step work with them internally, of just saying like, hey, why are you upset with this guy? Getting them to look in the mirror on that and be like, is this something, that a character trait that you potentially have within yourself that you're seeing like play out, and this is why it's upsetting you so much? But going back to what Lucas said, of just like going back and talking to them confidently and respectfully about what exactly is wrong, what we can do to get through it together. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I've seen you do is you do a really good job of being respectful and not increasing the intensity of the conversation. You don't really add to the fire. You use like politeness and respect to take out some of the intensity that the other person is experiencing. And then I also see you really try to channel like more emotions, like positivity, excitement, dreams. You kind of put an angle on like the emotional part of it. Like, man, what do you hope for yourself? You know, like I've seen you ask people those kinds of questions. What do you hope for yourself? How do you see this, like your life looking in? You know, you'll go like kind of future oriented and like trying to like lean on those like hopes that somebody may have for themselves. So I've seen you use both of those tools in conflict situations.
It's always easier for me to give that advice to other people than take it in. I mean, something that I personally really struggle with is thinking that I'm going to get to a hostile place with something that's bothering me, even though that there's not any evidence of that happening in my recovery. But there was a big portion of my life when I was using where that was a reality, of like David flying off the handle, doing dumb things like punching walls, punching someone. Like, I wasn't in my right mind. And it's like I have a I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I trick myself into thinking that could possibly happen again. That's back on the table when, like I said, in reality, it's not. Like, there's no evidence of that happening. But it's a scary thing that I run through in my head, and it can can keep me from having an important conversation because I'm just scared of that.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking of how you kind of go through cycles, or at least I did as like a kid. You're not worried about conflict. And this is a silly example, but it came up for me when y'all were talking through it, of my niece coming up to me at dinner one night. We're out at a nice dinner, packed restaurant. My niece runs up to my chair because she wants to talk to me. And I turn over and talk to her. And she just goes, "Oh, your breath stinks." Like, she was not worried about conflict. As a child, I think you have this innocence, you have this pureness, no filter, and you'll just say whatever.
Yeah.
In a very matter-of-fact way. And then I get a little older, I get into conflicts with people at school. I realize they're not all handled the same way. So then I get a little more reserved and avoidant style. And then when I get into my drug use, that's where I become very hostile and like try to get big so people will just drop it.
Yep. Yeah. If I had to guess, like playing that on out, like when you started getting like healthier and like sober, if I had to guess, like the people who are trying to confront you probably use a great deal of like politeness and respect with you, because you're either consciously or subconsciously shifting that on and paying that forward to the people we work with now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I've got an analogy.
What you got, Lucas?
I was thinking about it like a cake. And
yummy. Okay.
come on. And I feel like the prep, like oven prep style stuff for it is de-escalation, separation, and time. And this is when I'm thinking about like conflicts in GT sober living between like two guys. I feel like, like you were just saying, de-escalation of like turning the temperature down, physically separating them. And then I could go talk to both of them really quick for like 30 seconds and then try to bring them back together. It never works. So I feel like there's got to be a little bit of time, which is sometimes the tougher part. Cause like, how do you keep two guys apart that live in the same bedroom and share the same bathroom, let alone live in the same house? And then I think like the next challenging part is that there are necessary ingredients for it, but they come from two different people. And so I think the same way you couldn't bake a cake with butter, eggs, but not the flour, or flour, eggs, but not the butter. I think there's necessary ingredients that come from both people. And so that can be pretty tough. And what that looks like in sober living is, going to talk to both of the guys separately and trying to focus on the things you were talking about of like, what's your part in this? And even them saying like, it doesn't matter. Like, we need to talk about them. And it's like, just trust me. Like, let's just talk about your part, what you could have done better, what you feel like didn't go well, and what you could own up to. And if I can successfully get both of them to do that separately and then agree to come together, then that's like all the ingredients necessary. And then I feel like that final, not confrontation, but just like conciliation really is ideally what it is like the baking of the cake. That's the putting it in the oven. And I've seen sometimes where like you have all the ingredients right, whatever, and then it totally falls apart at that moment. I think it's good to have somebody kind of mediating it to bring it back on track. But sometimes you get it so right in the ingredient stage that like is set it and forget it, and you let those guys go talk on their own, and they both come back and are like, that was awesome. And then the cake comes out and we eat it together. Boom.
I think one other really important part of that is like making sure you feel heard. Like when you're going to people separately, and I agree, we need to, sometimes we're in that heightened fight state. We need to like separate and just get time to like regulate. But when you go to them, making sure they feel heard and like, hey, I hear you. I know you're frustrated. I know this is annoying, blah, blah, blah. Then I think, and only then are you able to like then flip it to like, okay, so what was your part in that? Because if you don't feel heard as a person, you're not going to be very receptive to like looking at your part of it. Kind of to what you were saying, what happened to you when you were early on in your recovery, Lucas, and people are trying to tell you about like I statements and stuff. You're like, well, what about me? Like, what about my point?
Well, that's the funny part. Then like you touched on it too, where there's just like there's like layers to it. And I think a lot of guys that we work with, and I can relate to it too. I was just always at that surface layer that's just like, no, he's a dick, she's a bitch, they suck, that's awful, blah blah, and just could not get to that deeper part of like what's really going on. Like, and I desperately be like, you don't get it. He's just an asshole. Like, that's all that it is. There's nothing deeper here. But when you do, it's like, oh, I mean, he reminds me a lot of my dad in this way. And then even that is like, because that makes me feel a certain way when he's acting what I think is like my dad. Like there's just like layers, and it gets so much like every layer I go deeper becomes more like entirely me and like less about that other person.
Yeah.
And I agree. I got to be heard to even get there and want to start peeling back layers. And that's where the rapport pays off too. And someone who understands me. And that's why it's important that we got to understand these guys to get their past, their motivations, where they're coming from, to know the message that's gonna resonate with them. All right, quote time. And it made me think about this that I just heard the other day. You can knock on a deaf man's door forever. And it just made me think about like whatever message we're giving to these guys, it really, really, really matters. However right I think it is, it really matters how I deliver it, or else I am knocking on a deaf man's door forever. Like if I don't deliver the message the right way. And so I got to know these guys to know the message that they need to hear and the way they need to hear it. And that's different guy to guy, and how long they've been sober and where they come from and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's just a lot of value in that.
Yeah, one thing I think you do a really good job of, if David's really good at like the de-escalation and coming in with like a lot of respect, I think you're good at that too. But like where you really shine, is like listening to someone and like going through it logically. Like you will sit down with somebody for like 4 freaking hours and listen to every point they have, and you're locked in. Like you love those conversations. Listen to their points, offer counterpoints, debate it in a very respectful way, and really help somebody like understand where they truly stand, and not just be in this like kind of like bogged down, like I'm fighting from this ditch place. Like, no, this is actually what I believe in because I've sat down and like really processed it all out. You help people get there, and you like lock in those conversations, you know?
Yeah. You're like Einstein, dude. You're the Einstein of problem solving.
Definitely got a science-based mind. You know what I mean? Like put it through the the scientific method. You know what I mean? Like here's your like hypothesis. Let's test it. Let's put it through experiments. Let's run it through like.
And then David walks in and he's like, all right, let's pretend you're a unicorn. How does that make you feel?
David's a big dreamer for sure. Big dreamer guy. David brings the theater in. Lucas brings his science in. So
it's like Amber Hollingsworth always says, like, you know, like use your powers for good.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like you hear it so many times with like addicts, alcoholics, where they're like, you should have been a lawyer because you just love to argue. Well, like I got all that too. And I do love to argue. And I argued for really bad things for a lot of my life. And I try to use my stuff for good today. And then I became like obsessed with like debate style, like YouTube channel. Like I'll just watch like probably 2 hours of debate like per day. And like love like the art and kind of science of debate, and like what are good arguments and what makes them good arguments and all that kind of. So like I really do love it, or else I wouldn't want to sit there for 4 hours. And I love the reward is getting to change someone's mind, at least in my opinion, like for the better. If I can shift them from what I believe is like a bad belief to a good belief, or like, you know, moral ambiguity to moral clarity on a certain topic, and like change them in that way. Like that's ultimately like all I'm trying to do with GT and everything. Is just like shift guys' minds towards like more positive things. Yeah. And help them use whatever their powers are, which sometimes is arguing. Those are the 4 hour ones, you know, to good. Of like, dude, you're really good at arguing. Just make sure you're arguing for the right stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it plays out in like in our own like meetings too. You know, what we tend to come into it with, you know.
Wednesday
like how
mornings.
we end up, on Wednesday mornings, we're having like our staff meetings and stuff, and like processing through things, you know.
I agree. I would say you're the emotions, Cole.
Think so?
Yeah, I think you're a big emotions guy, big feelings guy.
Yeah, I was thinking about like my conflict style, and it's interesting. Yeah, I think whereas like David, I think does a really good job with like respect. You know, I'm kind of putting this in like ingredients of the cake, right? Like David did a real good job with like respect. I think you do a really good job, Lucas, with like the being heard, you know, like I'll talk it through. So it's like being respected, being heard. And I think for me is more of the like emotional, like belief thing, you know, I'm like, hey, you got this, you know, and sometimes it can be pretty firm and like passionate in a way. But I think it's all just due to our different backgrounds. Like mine's with a lot of sports, you know, and like I'm a sucker for a pregame speech because like my entire life I play sports, and I'm like, all right, let's go. Like you got this. Like we can do this, you know, like, and I'll definitely channel that into a conflict, and sometimes fight fire with fire a little bit. You know, I can get a little snarky and sassy and hot in a conflict with somebody, because I was very much like raised that way. But then I also always try to bring it back to like, hey, like I'm being really like passionate and firm here because I know you can do this. Now let's freaking go do it, you know? So I think there's like respect, being heard, belief. Let's go. The triangle. Fire.
We are Captain Planet.
Captain Planet. Yes, exactly. David, you're definitely heart. David, your heart for sure, dude. I'm sorry.
I just picture guys leaving Cole's office, and Cole's like, gosh, Kirby Smart needs me on his team.
Oh,
Kirby needs to bring me in.
Dude, he needs me bad.
Just for the halftime speeches.
Oh,
man. Contracted for that.
Yeah.
Like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
Which
is actually funny. When I played, I never really I never did like the pregame rah-rah. There was always other guys on the team who were much more into that. But I was the one like during the game or like at halftime of like, we need to get it going. Like, what are we doing? Like that was more where I would like actually talk and everything. So just different like personalities, you know?
Yeah. I want to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Something stands out to me, or just a point that I want to make is that I would think that a big change in your conflict style is puberty. Like that's when a big shift happened for me as a young man. And I just have like this extra energy, testosterone, whatever flowing through my body. And I think that's when I got a little more aggressive. And I think the same, you know, I was the only boy. I had 3 sisters, but I think it was the same for them too. Of like around that time where they're getting more feisty, more willing to buck up to mom and tell mom how they really feel, storm out of the house, slam a door. Come on. But yeah, I wanted to point that out. And then I follow this guy on Instagram. He's like a parent coach. And I heard him say the other day, he was like, yeah. And he was speaking specifically to young men. And he was like, you've got to imagine as a young man, you have these 2 dogs chained to your wrist. And you have anger on one side, you have that dog that's pulling you, and you have lust on the other. And I kind of like to look at the anger one as I was thinking through it. Maybe that's more of a fear that's pulling you that causes different emotions, depression, anger, whatever. But you have to learn how to get control of these dogs and get them to heal, or they will just pull you around for the rest of your life and tug at you in different directions. And that hit home for me on this topic, because I think conflict style is a big part of that, is a big part of like controlling those dogs. Your anger, your lust, your fear, and being able to express yourself in a positive way, or talk through things in a positive way.
Yeah, I think when you're younger and you obviously have all the hormones going on, it's easier to go towards like being more hostile. I think also as for being a guy, like, you know, being like strong, assertive, all that kind of stuff is very much like what you're supposed to be in this culture, and you don't really learn nuance. And I think that's something I have been unlearning even at 40 years old, of like how to admit that I'm wrong and how to like really hear the other person and take ownership for my part in it. You know, like, I mean, a lot of like what y'all are talking about, like steps part of it, of like, if somebody's like, hey, this made me feel this way, of instead of jumping to defensiveness and being like, I didn't mean it that way, or that's not what, instead of jumping to that, you know, pausing long enough and being like, hear them now, like in this moment, and if that's their truth, and then like give them respect of that. And if there's something you want to add on to that, give it time, like let it sit, give it time. If you have anything to add on to it, but take ownership of your stuff, you know. And that's just something that wasn't really modeled to me as a kid. And that's something I've been like trying to unlearn and practice more in my own life, you know?
Yeah.
I think that it's, I think like it being modeled is such a big part of it, because when there's like a lack of emotional maturity and some of those like new, pretty intense feelings, and then like worst of all, like a bad model in there. And I think we do have a lot of bad models in society of like, you know, what it means to be a man, and like you got to put someone down in the dirt and put them in their place and show them who's who and whatever. But like it may just be me, but like there was something so appealing to that, and I don't know if it just like justified like my my base nature or like lower intentions, you know, of just like, yeah, like that's what I want to be like. Or if that's just kind of in everybody, that's just something that we kind of gravitate towards. Because there's something, I mean, there's many people, and I won't name names or anything, but just kind of like models of that behavior that are very successful and have huge followings. And most of those followings are young men, you know, like really bite onto that. And they're like, yeah, that's what I want to be.
Well, it's that feeling's intoxicating because it's power and it's control. And you're like, I know best, or no one's going to tell me like what to do. And it's a very vulnerable feeling to say like, hey, I'm wrong, or maybe I don't know, you know. And I think that's something you see too. If people get older, or they kind of go one of two ways. They either start to realize they don't know anything, or they start to lean even further the other direction that they know everything. And, you know, the choice is kind of yours as you get older. And thankfully, I can say pretty confidently, I know less now at 40 than I did at 20. Because you asked me at 20, and I thought I had it figured out for sure. And like every decade to go by, I'm like, man, I don't really know anything other than just trying to be a decent person every day. You know, like that's all I know. Everything else I'm trying to learn.
That's why 20 is the scariest. Because 20, I know nothing, but I think I know everything. There's like no scarier place to be in life than that, of just like so little knowledge, so little life experience, and like no awareness around that of like how little I know and how much life experience I haven't had, but that I think I have.
Yep.
And I'd say like, it's not like I have that much. I have more life experience today, more knowledge, more whatever. But I think today it's more just awareness of what I don't know. And like, that's okay that I don't know. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life knowing as much as I can know while being aware of what I don't know. And like, that's where I do the best, is when I'm not overreaching or overstepping into things that, I'm really just making stuff up on.
Yeah. That starts at 16, not 20.
Yeah, for sure. I just think 20 is the peak of it, or maybe 18 is, because that's when society says you're an adult. And that was like a big jump up in my confidence of like, yeah, I'm an adult. So like, you can't tell me, like, it just gave me even more license of like, I'm a grown man, which like I always tell that story of a guy that we worked with years and years ago. It's like one of my favorite stories. But he was, he had turned 18 with us in the program, and he was sitting on the couch. And I remember he put his feet up on the coffee table in this very like, almost like defiant way. And he was like, guys, we're just men, you know, we're just men hanging out and like being on the couch, putting our feet up, you know, just men. And like dead serious, not trying to be funny. And it was like, yeah, man, like, I guess, you know, technically we're all men. And now you that you're 18. And he was big on this, like, I'm a grown man. I'm on my grown man shit, man. You know, like I'm about to go get a job and do this and do that. And then I think it was like maybe only a month later or like a week later, something came up about him like having to go get a job. And he was like, I'm just a little boy. I'm just a kid. I don't know why you guys are asking me to do this stuff. I'm just a kid. Like, you know, he got into a little bit too deep of water of like what it means to be a man, and not even a man, but just an adult, like a responsible adult. And he wanted to run back to like, I'm a kid. And I feel like that's a lot of the guys that we run into. And honestly, whether they're 17 and turn 18 with us, or whether they're 33 and turn 34 with us, that's kind of our guy, is like caught between like wanting all the freedoms of being an adult without any of the responsibilities, and more to the level of responsibility of a child. They're like, I'm just a kid, man. Like, you can't take that out on me. Like, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. And I think for like an understanding of where people are coming from with that, like typically they're trying to react against something they felt in the past. Whether if you're like trying to like really exemplify or exaggerate your manhood, odds are you probably have felt like a child in your past, or like was really controlled. And then on the flip side of it, if you're really bucking up against responsibility, the reality is you probably have failed at responsibility at some point, failed out of college, lost a job, lost a girlfriend, crashed a car, whatever. You have this like loss that's happened in the past due to your lack of responsibility, and you're rejecting that and pushing away from it. So it gets in this really like pendulum swinging, and we think of it as they're doing a pendulum swinging to try to get to it, like from responsibility. They're trying to pendulum swing away from responsibility towards freedom. It's not that they're going towards freedom, it's they're running away from responsibility because it burned them in the past, right? And they're trying to like they're just it's a reaction away from as opposed to a going towards. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
because it's like all fear-based, so everything's running away from something rather than to something. Even drugs and alcohol is like running away from hardships of life rather than necessarily to the good feelings of being high. Like the high or the drunk is the escape from the hard thing.
Yes, exactly. And there's usually just like a lack of confidence in being able to have a conflict well, to be able to actually step up to the plate with responsibilities, to have responsibilities and still enjoy like a childlike wonder and fun in the world. And it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to get that. And so like that fear is why people like will run away from those things,
Yeah, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with conflict styles.
What do you guys see in our evolution of conflict styles? Like how because I feel like we will hit on these, or we'll go through it in a certain order at times. I can go first if you guys want. You guys can tell me if I'm like on with this, with the way I like handle conflict.
Go ahead.
You're right. So what I think I do is, if I had to like rank them, I think I go to like friendly conflict avoidance at first. It's like, I'm not even fully aware that there's a conflict. Like, I'm not only good at like hiding it from other people, I hide it from myself. And then this
is so true. I just got to interject. God, this is so true.
Hang on. I haven't even gone through the whole thing.
No, but it's already true.
And so then it goes into more of, oh, I am aware of it and I am like not happy, but there's just an undercurrent of just like frustration, but I'm not really talking about it or even know exactly how to talk about it. So then now I've shifted from like friendly conflict avoidance to conflict avoidance. And then when it's pointed out or there's like a discussion around it, I can go to hostile dependent, where I'm like not very nice or pretty defensive and argumentative, and just hostile, hence the name, and like go through it that way. And then hopefully at some point after all that mess, get to like secure, like considerate conflict. You know what I mean? But that is like for Cole, like the very like unhealthy like way that I go through it. Now there are other times where I'm like more receptive, more in like the secure conflict style. Like there's sometimes I'm like that. But if I'm in like a funky place, I would say it's that ranking I just went through, or that's the way I go through it. What do you guys think, having had conflicts with me before?
I think that was dead on, dude. That was exactly it.
What do you think, David?
Yeah. Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think that's also like when you laid that out, I think that's very typical for most people I know, like including myself. The only thing I'd say is I think sometimes I skip maybe the conflict avoidant or the friendly conflict avoidant. I just start at hostile dependent and then go to hopefully secure that. Whether that's like being confronted by someone else and going hostile dependent, or confronting someone and being, starting hostile dependent. Because I'm very fearful of conflict avoidant. I think that was a lot of what was modeled to me in my life, and just like a really fine line between conflict avoidant and hostile dependent. Yeah, and it's just like you're going to get conflict avoidant until all of a sudden you're not, and then you're getting hostile dependent.
Yeah,
and it's like just like that.
Yep.
And so like that's what I saw is like you just stuff explode, stuff explode. So I think those are the two that I go through more, but I think in an effort to like not be conflict avoidant, risk going more hostile dependent, trying to be like direct, and maybe coming too hard.
Yeah. Hey, how about this? Let's all share this. And it's in our own group therapy here. What are like your warning signs when you're going more towards like that whatever that kind of more unhealthy conflict style path is for you. What are like your warning signs? And I can go first if that'd be easier. Since I just talked about what's that?
I shut down. You'll notice me like really pull back from communication, conversation, even eye contact. I big time shut down. There's a funny video about this where the husband's like pouting on a sofa and the wife comes in and she's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like,
"Oh yeah."
And she's like, "Was your hamburger meat not cooked well?" And he shakes his head and she goes through a list and finally she's like, "Did the Georgia Bulldogs not win?" He's like, but that's
good on him though, dude. If the Georgia Bulldogs don't win, like everybody in my house knows.
Yeah,
they know. But to be fair, we were celebrating the other night when they beat Florida, like full on, like celebrating the backyard. So we're celebrating too when they win. I think one of my warning signs is I kind of do the same kind of shutdown that you're talking about in little ways, David. But I'm more like funky about it. It's like I don't want to talk about anything, and it's just like a funkiness. I'm like, and then if you get me to talk, it usually starts with the F word, and I'm like, fuck this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like it's just whatever. Fuck this blank. There's just like this undercurrent of just funkiness, and I don't really want to talk, but if I have to, it's just like overwhelmingly like pessimistic and negative, and just like. But I'm not gonna like it's a little different. One of us on this call. Well, actually, you guys share yours. I have there's a little bit of a difference in the way we do this. But I usually don't want to talk, and it's usually like a lot of like kind of like bitterness, and like it's like coming out. What do you think your warning signs are, Lucas?
For like bad conflict style?
Yeah, if you're going that direction.
I would think kind of similar, of like just negative, pessimistic, F this, F that. Probably I guess I would say the most would probably be like hypercritical, like very like critiquing.
Okay.
I honestly, I don't know. I would not feel confident. I would feel more confident in y'all and outside people that I know's assessment of what my warning signs.
Okay.
Unfortunately, more than I would be. Like I wouldn't trust mine as much as I would trust y'all's perception of that, because I think I naturally want to be in the right, So it's like, no, that's not a warning sign. That's when I'm doing conflict right. And like, you're the one who's just taking it wrong. So like to challenge that, I know that I kind of need to listen to outside people of like, no, I see you go here and you go there, and really try to take that and accept it.
Sweet. David, let's tell him what his warning signs are. Do you have one? I have one if you don't.
You can go first.
Yeah, I think it's the you get on the hyperfixation of the thing that's bothering you, and you just like talking it out, and it's like like it's kind of opposite of what I was saying, where I'm like shutting down, and there's a funkiness and like there's just like a negativity, and then I don't even really want to talk about it, and I'll just like say like fuck this. I'll use that as the way to push it away. You'll go in it, and you're like going around and around, and then whenever it hits like solution time, you're like, I know, like back on the. You're like, I'm staying on this. I'm like, well, there's the exit ramp right here. No, and we're back on that. That's a warning sign that I see. What about you, David?
Yeah, I would say just from more of like a physical perspective, you can tell, like, bro, if Lucas has some stuff he needs to talk about, you can tell by the way he carries himself, by the way he's walking in a room. He wears it on his face more so than anyone I've ever met in my life. Of like, I got some stuff I'm about to talk about.
And he'll talk about it though, which I do appreciate.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
I'm not good at hiding it.
No. Which I don't think any of us are. I think we just like it shows up in a different way.
Yeah. That's true.
Yours is more of like a fast pace, bring it into the room. Mine is more of like a I'm going to try to stuff it down and hopefully it goes away on its own and I don't have to talk about it.
No, David, for you, dude, it's like dissociating and checking out. And then once the dam gets a tiny crack, the dam explodes, and then the sky is falling, dude. The sky is falling. We're all fucked. We're all doomed. Everything is the worst. It is the end of the world as we know it. Like the sky is falling, man. Like that's when you're going into more about like unhealthy conflict style. Like you have a conflict or something that's bothering you, and it's just like, this is the end of the world as we know it. We're screwed. You're screwed. I'm screwed. We're all screwed. Like that's like a warning sign that I see.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that only plays out in business. I feel
Really?
like, yeah. I mean, I think I could be wrong. I'd have to bring my family and my wife into that, but
Morgan, get in here.
yeah.
Morgan, come upstairs. Come out, man. Come out from door number 1 behind David.
Yeah, well, we'll do couples. We got couples therapy coming up whenever. What, next week? It will be you and Morgan.
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks.
2
Yeah.
weeks.
17.
Okay. Yeah, we'll sit down and hash all that out. Figure it out. Do you have any warning signs for Dave, Lucas?
Yeah, I think like the dissociation, but I'll say David's really good at this of like, I'll kind of notice something's up, but I have found that like there's no need to press into it because a couple hours later he'll call me and be like, I just got to talk about this and that and this thing that happened, or like he's really good about checking in after the fact.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason like I don't initiate it is because I'm confident that he'll initiate it, and that he'll initiate it when he's like best ready to talk about it anyways. Like when he calls me, he's ready to talk about it, and he's ready to like, he's in a pretty good spot, and he's like, it made me feel like this, and I don't like feeling like that, and I think I'm going to go say this, but I want to make sure that's right. Like he's really, really, really good about expressing that stuff and checking in about it. I think I just have learned, like, just give him his space to do that. He'll come around and do it really, really, really well.
I think, and that stems from me thinking another style of conflict resolution is going to come out of it, or being like hostile. Of like I said before, even though there's no evidence that that's the case in my sobriety, there's this part of my brain that's like, you're going to go here. And it's going to be really bad, and you're going to like ruin friendships, and it's like, okay, I just need time. And I even do that like with house stuff. I'll tell my wife like, hey, I just got to go for a run. Just let me go for 40 minutes. I'll come back. We'll talk about everything, but for right now, I just need space.
Yeah.
I think yours and mine are opposites too, of like where we come from, and then trying to go against that. Where like I'm very fearful of being avoidant, so I like overcorrect to directness sometimes, and I think you're kind of fearful of directness and like how that might tear some stuff up, that you kind of overgo to avoidance.
I would agree with that.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Cole, yeah, you get very dismissive, where it's like, hey, we should really talk about this thing, and your solution is like exactly like you said. It's
Get
like,
out of my office.
F those people. F everything they stand for.
Yep.
F them. F the horses they rode in on. F that program. F that thing. F all of it. And there's nothing else to talk about because that is the stance.
Yep.
And it's just like, yeah. But like, what if you're like, no. F that. And we're done talking about it.
Well, I need to just start being like, oh,
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Like, well, I don't want to.
No, it's terrible. And that's end of discussion. It feels very like it's shut down.
Yeah. And that's usually when I'm in a bad spot where I'm just like, it's like a lack of control, of like feeling out of control about stuff. And I'm like, well, if I can't control that, I'm going to control this, and just jump into the next thing. And it doesn't play out very well.
But the funny thing is like, I mean, doing what we've done 5 years, 8 years, whatever, whether it's like the Office of the Sober Living, I think we have pretty good like conflict resolution skills, problem solving skills, stuff like that. And so it always brings me back to kind of more like recovery 12-step stuff of like the difference is normally like what's going on outside of that issue with how I handle that issue. And like, if you guys see me coming in all, physically wearing it, it's because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I got in an argument with my wife, and one staff member related to me is not doing what I want them to do, and I got one tough guy, and I just had it's all that stuff, and then it's like because of all that, I'm handling this problem the wrong way.
Yeah.
But the same problem on a good day where I woke up on the right side of the bed, stuff was good with my wife, like everything's good, I show up as a totally different person for the exact same problem. I love that because it's like the difference is not all these things that I want to point to. The difference is me.
For sure. Yeah, I know, because I was trying to think what like my big trigger to go to that place. And it's usually like just like burnout perspective. And it's because I haven't been like taking good enough care of myself. And the like stress is just building and building and building and not being proactive with talking about that. So I'm shoving it down. And then I'm just like, no, it just comes out like sideways, big time. And the good thing is I'm like learning that about myself. So people like point that out to me or like, which is can be, I feel for them, feel for you guys. Like I can be a little scary. I'm trying to set up a new dynamic of like, if someone does come to me, say like, hey, I noticed this, or like, well, you said this, made me feel this way. I'm trying to do a better job of like being receptive to that and not like fighting that as well, So that's like taking ownership of the way you as a person handle conflict and realizing that, yeah, you create some damage with that. And you have to like go above and beyond to make sure people do feel safe and coming to you. But yeah, it's always more about me than the actual like topic at hand,
Mm-hmm. I am the common denominator.
Usually that's the case. Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to teach the guys.
Yep.
Control their dogs.
Well, control their dog. Well, and I think it's good because like if you're just looking at it like, well, these guys are all crazy and they don't know what they're doing. Like, man, like that is such like a an arrogant way to look at it and to realize that like they're people too, just like we are, that are trying to figure it out and coming at it from this like, hey, we're all trying to learn together. It's such a collaborative way to approach them, as opposed to just like kind of elitist or like, I'm a mental health therapist and I always handle conflict perfectly. Like that's not true, And so I can have a lot more empathy for them when they mess it up. I probably a lot of times do what they do, like what the guys do. So yeah.
And that's what makes it hard too. I would imagine a little bit harder for a therapist who's not in recovery versus like David or I who are in recovery and went through sober living similar. Yeah. Because like the similarities, the relatability, really slaps me in the face anytime that I am trying to be like, oh, I just don't get how they're acting like that. It's like, I've done exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And if I think about it for 1 second, I can totally relate and I can feel all the feelings. I know exactly how they feel, exactly how justified they feel and all that. So I think it can help me get like more quickly to the solution of, all right, because I can connect with how they feel, what did I need to hear in that moment to be able to like adjust and see a different perspective and whatever? What did people say to me? And that's always the thing, even when that guy called me last week and he was like, man, thanks so much. It's like, dude, I didn't come up with that. Like someone just like, I was you in that same thing of like, no, it's this guy's fault, this guy's problem, blah, 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 whatever. And someone sat me down and said all the stuff that I said to you. So like, I'm just regurgitating, like this isn't stuff that I came up with. This is stuff that like, you don't know what you don't know until someone told me and it worked really well. And now I want to pass it on to other people so that it can work really well for them. Cause I hate to see someone struggle through conflict the way that I did, because it sucks and you feel so bad for way longer than you should. Mm-hmm. Like healthy conflict resolution just gets it off your shoulders so much more quickly. And you don't have to burn bridges too.
Yeah. And I think like
cut so many people off.
Yeah.
Like they're dead to me of like that person crossed me. I kind of crossed them. It's not worth having a conversation about. So I guess I'll never talk to them again.
Yeah.
I've burned so many bridges like that. And that sucks in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's, we look at our staff, like the ones that have done really well and been able to be in this field for a considerable amount of time. It's the ones that have done their own work. Like that's the big barometer. If you haven't done your own work and you're not able to be humble and realize that like, hey, they're bringing up something in me that I also struggle with. Like I could see myself doing this. So let me use that empathy to try to help them. The staff members we've had over the years that cannot tap into that or have not done that work, have not done well with us. That's just the reality of it, you know? And it has to come from like this personal place where you are trying to like get better and do your own work, you know?
I think that's the only difference is like whether it's David and me and the guys or a mental health therapist that haven't had addiction issues. The only difference is that the addiction people go and use drugs to deal with it, and the mental health therapists use some other negative coping skill, you know, to deal with it. But like all the feelings and the conflict issues, that's a very human thing. I don't think anyone is shielded or protected from, and having to figure out how to deal with it. It's just how we deal with it.
Yep.
You're right. You're right.
All right, boys. We got anything else today? Any last points?
No,
I don't think so. Conflict is hard.
Conflict is hard. It really is.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to navigate, but it's kind of like having to fire someone, you know, it's, you think about it and it's really hard, but then you just do it. It's hard for the 3 minutes or 5 minutes you're having a conversation, and then everything feels better after that. Like
if you're in alignment with your values and you've been doing all the checks with the people around you who are there to help you, for sure. It's true. It's truly congruent to who you are. So stay humble, people. Stay humble.
All right. That's a wrap.
All right.